free content for the coach, by the coach, raising the bar every week. Speed for Your Mind Podcast, episode number 11. Speed for Your Mind Podcast is sponsored by Powerlift Equipment. High quality equipment, unique design, and multifunctional training capabilities. Powerlift are innovators for the strength and conditioning field. Hey everybody, this is Zach Houghton with the Speed for Your Mind Podcast, episode number 10. Today on the show we have Jared Myatt. He is the Director of Strength and Conditioning at Northwestern State University. Jared, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Glad to be on here.
Can you tell us a little about yourself, some of your background, where you've been, what you've done, who you've worked with? Just give the audience kind of a feel for who you are.
Absolutely. I'm from Louisiana. I played at Louisiana College, small school down here. My first internship was with Kurt Hester at Louisiana Tech. He's kind of the guy that kind of sat me down and showed me a lot of, which direction to go. I was there in the summer. He helped me get a grad assistant job at Mercer University in Georgia. I went there, graduated in about a year and a half, and then went to volunteer at LSU. And then had a brief stint at App State as an assistant strength coach over wrestling. We worked with football, and then the job over here at Northwestern State, and I had to get back home to my roots.
Yeah, so I mean, just talking, and make sure the audience knows. So, Jared started this is his first head job, and he is, he's relatively young, and as I was, when you kind of get thrown into the fire. Today we're going to talk about, kind of that transition from assistant to, or GA to assistant to head guy, and being able to take over your program. So, Jared, I guess my first question to you is how do you make that transition? What's the biggest, difference for you as a coach, and what can you kind of suggest for, people that are also going to make that transition soon?
Just knowing what you believe. That's the biggest thing. Is that I've always, when I was an assistant, GA, I always took notes. I was like, what are you going to be when it's that time? What are you going to believe in yourself and your program and expect from your players? And that was the biggest thing for me, is that when I finally stepped in this position, I was like, all right, now it's time to, I wrote everything down, how I want to do things, and just be confident in your belief and make sure the guys believe it, that's going to be the best thing for them. So when I was an assistant, the head guys, he's the model, he's the figurehead, and you got to back him up whenever it's said. But now when you're the head strength coach, you can develop whatever culture you want to go with. And I've been, I've had different backgrounds everywhere I've gone, and actually take a little pieces of everywhere I've been and take what I like and what I didn't like, and then come here with a program that was kind of on the downfall right now, kind of trying to bring it back up and change that culture. The kids, took to it really well, and I was really hard on them in the summer. I got here in June, and not much time left, so I was just like, all right, make these guys more accountable, get some energy going in them, and we're gonna be in shape. So that was kind of how I stepped in here. Just got to make sure you have goals and plans, and make sure that you just see it through, and don't waver when you're trying to get those things done.
So what do you think the biggest difference is before from what you were doing to what you're doing now?
The biggest difference, as in just as a role, as being an assistant to head.
Yeah. So what do you think the biggest difference is in terms of what you're doing now as a head guy versus what you were doing before? You're having to be a leader, as a staff. You have, assistant, and I'll have 2 GAs come January, and just having to be a leader for your staff. You have to be a leader for, your teammates. You have to be a leader. You have to be the spokesperson for the sport coaches, and just having to be, all around there. I think the confidence and not second guessing what you're, when you're an assistant, you kind of wonder, what's the head guy thinking? What should we, what should we be doing? And, sometimes, make sure that you make the right decision and you back him up at 100%. But now I'm the head strength coach, you know what you want and how you want it done, and then being confident in those decisions. So that was so that's the biggest thing as a head strength coach, is knowing, what you want done and seeing it through. So there's no, you don't have to second guess anything or think anything like that. That's the biggest thing for me. And then just having the administrative roles, talking to budgeting and getting things ordered and fundraising, and just really trying to you're kind of a jack of all trades, and especially at the FCS level, you kind of have to
You work with every sport. You got to manage your time. You got to run from practice to workout. So work with every team, and plus it makes it fun. Getting to see different personalities out through the day. So because I was only wrestling and football at App State, but whereas I was at Mercer, I mean we're trying to every sport. There's 22 sports there. So it's just kind of using my background to my advantage. To seeing what it's like to be at the big time and seeing what time at the FCS level as well. So. Just making sure, being confident in what you're doing is the biggest thing. I just really, enjoy developing the culture from my standpoint.
Absolutely. So can you tell me, like, you've talked about where you've been and who you've worked for, right? And I think that's always big in terms of, how a coach develops, who they work for and where they're at and what they pick up on. So can you talk about one? The people that you've worked for and what you learned from, like let's say you talk about Kurt Hester, right?
Yeah.
He's such a well-respected coach in the field. What did you pick up from him in terms of leadership, in terms of, what he did on a daily basis to develop you guys as staff, right? And what do you do? What do you do to develop your staff, or what is your plans?
Okay. The biggest thing, Kurt, that stuck out to me is that when I first became an intern, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a former college football player going in there, and the biggest thing he told me was like, "You're never going to be Kurt Hester." He was like, "You're never going to be, Tommy Moffitt. You're going to be Jared Myatt. So you need a coach like Jared Myatt." And he's like, and you'll find yourself as a coach as you go along and you learn who you are as a coach. So that was one huge thing for me, is that I kept, comparing myself to other people, coaches, and trying to be like them. And he's like, "Dude, just be what you, the coach you're supposed to be." So that was really the thing that kind of was like a eye-opening moment for me. I was like, yeah, it's like, whatever I feel like is the way that's going to reach these athletes, that's the way you should be, and be real, because players will see right through it. I mean, they'll see right through some fake energy or juice. If you're not a juice guy, don't be a juice guy. If you're not if you're not sitting there trying to be an exercise physiologist over here, don't sit there and try to spit smart terms at them. So that was one big thing when I was at LSU. Coach Moffitt, he was the man. He sat me down and just talked about life. I mean, we never talked about training. He always talked about the principles of developing young men and things like that. And of course, that we was highly Olympic based there. So he knew that I knew the training philosophy. So there was no point. He's going to make sure that we develop these young men to be ready for outside football, and then to just be ready for the games and develop the culture that he wants. When I was at Mercer, it was kind of different there. I was working for John Mangle and Cole Miller there, and it's kind of like they let you figure out who you are as a coach. That was the biggest thing. Is like, hey, you're gonna figure it out. You just need to bring your presence on the floor, and whatever it may be, just bring it. So that was up, and then I worked for Mike Siriano at App State, and he's an intense guy. And that's I learned from him that you can be hard on these kids and they'll respond. And then so that was everywhere you go, you got to take something. You got to take a piece of the puzzle and to form your own layout.
So what do you do to like right now, right? And I think every coach has a different way they like to do it, different way they like to develop their staff. But what is a way that you really like to work with your staff to develop them as coaches?
I like to sit down and just see their programming, see their thought processes. Since I only got here in June, we've just been guns blazing. We haven't had like an in-staff in-service many times. We've done it a few times, but we're just trying to get our head on straight. But we sit down and we just talk our program. We just say, hey, what are you doing this cycle? And like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And just so that we know what every team's kind of doing and what their thought process behind it. So that way, as a staff, if we're ever helping, we know the thought process behind that. And just explaining your program, and you just hear yourself talk out loud about it, it really helps you be critical on yourself to know what you're trying to do and not try to be something over the top or over fancy, something like that. So I really like for my GAs, my assistant to really just come out and explain it. And if he can explain it and he can coach it up, then I'm all for it. I'm not going to sit here and say you should be a powerlifting style or Olympic or high intensity, whatever it may be. If you can coach it and you believe in it, then that's I just want to make sure that's all we have to do. So we learn from each other just from our thought process, and then as we get closer to the spring, we'll actually start doing a curriculum and things like that, and get that established. So that's kind of the thing right now, just being practical in what we do.
Right. So I guess my next question would be, is, what's the biggest thing that you've realized being a head guy, right? So like I always used to say I've had assistants, right, and I've been that guy, and I'll tell them it's a hell of a lot different when you're sitting on that side of the desk, when you're hearing things from all different directions, right? So what's the biggest thing that you've realized as a head guy that maybe you look back and you're like, maybe that's why so and so did this, or that's why so and so did that. What's that for you?
Definitely, it's like you said, it's just seeing the bigger picture. You don't see all sides of it, and I come with a little bit of experience, not crazy amount, but I start to see, what's going to happen if this happens or something like that. So when you're trying to lead, and you tell the staff to do this, and tell you want the players doing this, and they haven't done it to me, but this is the thing. Like, why are we doing it like this? It's just kind of you see a bigger picture on everything like that, and others may not understand it, but they just got to go, have your back because you're the general in the situation. So it's that's definitely the biggest thing, is that like you're trying to see the bigger picture on everything, see how administration works, how football coaches are working, and trying to get with us we have a small weight room, so we have to have crazy hours for certain teams and do certain things, and so I'm having to train some teams differently than I would want to, just for time purposes and things like that. So that's been the biggest thing. Is it's not as easy as it looks when you're the head guy. You just kind of have to see the bigger picture and do things you probably don't want to do, but you have to do in certain situations.
Yeah, I think that's such a big thing, because a lot of coaches, as assistants, as GAs, the whole time that they're there, they're thinking, man, why in the hell are we doing this, or why in the hell are we doing that? But they got no idea, what the softball coach asked you to do, or what the baseball coach asked you to do, or what your senior administrator asked you to do, or what the thought process is there. And I just think that's such a big takeaway, because that was my number one thing. Sometimes I used to look at things and be like, I just don't know why we're doing this. And then I was a head guy and said, my athletics director said, well, we're going to do things this way. And I said, okay.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yes, sir.
So, so that's kind of the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that at the end of the day, like, you're there to do a job, and you're going to do a great job of what you're doing, but there's a lot more people than you thought that have a say in what the hell you do. And I think that's a huge takeaway. So tell me, as a head guy, and you gotta know just as well as I do, what do you do to keep developing, right? I think that there's a lot of coaches that, like, maybe your job is their dream job. You know what I mean? To be a head strength coach at the FCS level, or and be that guy. What do you do to continue developing as a head strength and conditioning coach, to not only make yourself better, but make your staff better?
One thing I do is I just really I just brush up on the simple things. I really like to go back and read books. Right now, like, I'm just kind of I don't want to be too broad in my training, so I'm going back and reading books that I've read, and I keep getting takeaways from it that I didn't get the first time. And I don't want to sit here and just read every single book I can when I haven't fully understand the principles of what I'm doing. And so the biggest thing is, with my staff, when I do the in-season training, I kind of ask their opinion. What do you see this? How the guys responding? Do the guys, they look like they're getting something out of it and things like that? Or are we pushing them too hard in season? Or are we not pushing them enough? And I really like the feedback, just because I don't want to sit here in my own head and say this is how it should be done. So I want to make sure that I want to make sure they're thinking as well. Like, if I was in this situation, what would we be doing? And I'll do that. Like, hey, if you're running this program, what would you do? And I just love putting people, like, not on the spot, but just trying to get them to think practically. Like, instead of just sitting here behind a desk, I'm like, oh yeah, I would do this if I was, like, no, really, what would you do? I want to hear it out loud. And so the biggest thing for me to develop is just keep reassuring what I do know and things like that. And then once I've got it down, or whatever, maybe I'll move on to another something and just try to really get it down, because I don't want to sit here and just try to be like do everything coach. I don't want to sit here and try to do 1,000 different philosophies, different every kind of culture, every kind of personality. I'm just trying to be who I am, and I'm going to get perfect at it, and then I'll slowly grow. And I don't think I'm experienced enough to sit here and say I'm broad enough, in my field or my knowledge to sit here and just read every single thing I can. I still, so I'm brush up on nutrition. I try to brush up on, training and Olympic training and, and triphasic training, things like that. So I stay in my realm. And that's what helped develop me, is because, I keep saying, do you know this perfect? Could you coach this all day, every day? So that's one thing that helps me develop. And then again, I keep trying to be practical on my staff and make sure that they understand what they're doing. And then, like I said, I want them to make sure they know what they're doing first before they try to read some other philosophy or whatever it may be, and then and really find themselves as a coach first.
Absolutely. So you being a young cat yourself, this is just two young guys talking, right? And
yeah.
People don't think most of them don't think we know jack shit, so we're just going to keep on moving, right?
Yeah.
But, being a young guy yourself and a guy that has done this, right? I mean, you can be humble all you want, but I mean that's the fact of the matter, So, what advice do you have for coaches, that are young, that are aspiring to get to where you are? What's some advice that you can give to them?
Being prepared and building relationships. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Is that if you're not prepared, and then when you finally start to build those relationships and those, when I went to LSU and talked to Coach Moffitt, he sat there, I'm volunteering, I'm married, I'm not making any money. It was pretty, stressful time in my life, and he was, hey, it's all right, things are going to be good, you're doing a good job and stuff like that. And so, just building those relationships, because it all ties in together. Like when I was in for this job, someone knew Kurt Hester, and obviously everyone knows who Coach Moffitt is. And so when they both called, to help me out with this job, that's, that it's all about relationships, even when you're just a volunteer, so it all ties together. I met Coach Thomas a long time ago, that's our head football coach, and it was just so brief, but it was still a relationship, and it was a great impression. And so just being prepared when your moment's called, when you're meeting people and things like that, and being genuine in your relationships. I really don't think I've ever been fake. I'm a pretty approachable guy, I like to talk and stuff like that. And just being ready to build relationships. Don't put especially if you're a young strength coach, don't put a wall up and be insecure. You got to walk up to Jeff Connors, walk up to people like that and say, hey man, I'm so and so. It's great to meet you. Be genuine. Don't sit there and try to kiss their ass or nothing. But that's what's helped me, is I've grown relationships. When I was at LSU, head football coach at Mercer University, knew the head strength coach at App State, and that's how I got the job there. And so it's just, I build relationships everywhere I'm going and try not to burn any bridges. And that's a lot of people might try to go that route, but everything circles back around. So every job I've been at has helped me get the next one. And I didn't plan on jumping this fast, but it's just kind of worked out that way. And I'm back home now. I grew up 45 minutes north of here, and so that was a big deal for me. And now I'm getting to be a head strength coach and be home, which is very rare. And it's all because I built relationships, and I was trying to be prepared for my time's called. Just being who you are as a strength coach. You got to be you, not don't be Tommy Moffitt, don't be Kurt Hester, don't be Jeff Connors, don't be Mike Siriano. So it's just that's the biggest thing, is that I think guys they'll try to build relationships and be fake, or just not put the effort out there, or they'll just try to big league everybody and try to go talk to the big Power 5 strength coaches and not talk to the GAs and young assistants and interns. When that's a big deal, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna be head guys, and they're gonna be stuff like that, and that's this relationship. This strength community needs to grow, and everyone needs to know each other and help build off each other and things like that.
Yeah, you always got to do your best work all the time, right? I think that's the biggest to carry away from all that. That's great stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man. And I think that whoever's listening is going to have some great stuff to listen to, either on their commute to work or while they're working out. So this is some great stuff that you had today, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me, man.